Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're going to be doing another reaction video. This time it is to Anthony Padilla's video, I Spent a Day with Wiccans Who Use My Body as a Vessel to Cast Spells. This video has been highly requested for me to do a reaction to, and you all know that I really enjoy Anthony's videos. I think his interviews are phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see this one. As usual, I'm never going to show the full video in this video, so if you would like the original version, which I would thoroughly recommend you watch, I will leave the link down in the description box. Now in these videos, my main goal is to add extra context to what is said. Often these videos are quite short. They might cover very extensive topics in a very small amount of time. So any additional information I might be able to add onto a topic might give you a better understanding of what they're referring to, and also might help you apply it better into your own magical practice. Though today I refer to myself as a practicing witch, and I don't actively follow the Wiccan religion right now, for about 10 years of my magical practice I was a follower of the Wiccan tradition. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what this video entails. Is it going to be about initiatory Wicca or solitary Wicca? Are there going to be different people who are part of different aspects of Wicca? That's going to be really interesting. And given the title of this video, it seems like at least some of the people they're going to be talking about also encompass an aspect of witchcraft into their practice, which I'm going to be really excited to see more about. So with that all being said, let's get into this video, and I am so looking forward to this one because apparently, and I've not watched it yet, it's really, really good.
I'm Anthony Padilla, and I spent a day with Wiccan high priestesses to learn the truth about the highly controversial beliefs and bizarre rituals of this occultist religion. Today, I'm going to put their words to the test by allowing them to use me as a vessel to cast a spell. But what I really want to know is this religion so controversial because it commonly empowers women? Or is it because of something much more nefarious? Like worshiping Satan? Hello, Phyllis!
Hi.
I think we all know the answer to that question, and it isn't that Wiccans worship the devil. Not at all. For any of you who don't know, Wicca was created by a man named Gerald Gardner in the 1930s. It was then released to the general public in the 1950s, and from that point on has gained strength and has spread all across the world. It's important to remember, though, that different aspects of Wicca were taken from different pre-existing traditions, and so Wicca didn't just spring up out of nowhere. Instead, it is an accumulation of different beliefs and practices, many taken from different religious beliefs as well as different magical beliefs, and has been collected together into the religion that we see today. Wicca was originally an initiatory religion, where people were initiated into groups or covens where they were taught information about the religion. You were oath-bound, and so people outside of that initiatory coven weren't able to know the information about it. So to start off with, Wicca was very secretive, very private. It was often reliant on you having a local coven. As the decades went on, however, Wicca began to adapt and change, and now you can be a solitary Wiccan without the requirement for an initiatory coven. Initially, Wiccans followed a horned god and a moon goddess. In different coven environments, they would represent different deities. Sometimes they would represent the archetypes. They would be referred to as the horned god and the moon goddess. In other coven environments, they were oath-bound, so only the people who were initiated into that coven would know the specific names of those two deities as part of that group. Now, some people do unfortunately believe that this horned god figure is a representation of the Christian devil, but for the majority of practicing Wiccans, that simply isn't the case, and it's just one of many misconceptions. In the modern day, there are many different forms of Wicca with many different teachings and belief systems, so it's going to be really interesting to see the specific beliefs of the individual people in this video.
Hi.
Thorn!
Hey.
Wait, I was not expecting to recognize anyone in this video. I know of Thorn. I'm pretty certain that she's a content creator. That's really cool. Okay, you can tell I knew nothing about this video going into it, so I'm now very excited about this video. I love it when I see fellow content creators and YouTubers in videos like this, because YouTube is such a massive platform where we can share so much good information. So to see like crossovers, it's like Disney Channel crossovers, but on YouTube, I just really enjoy seeing that kind of thing.
Now, how would you describe yourself? Wiccan, what kind of words would you use?
Generally speaking, I refer to myself as a Wiccan priestess.
Most of the time, I just reach for witch.
Witch.
But witch is such a broad term these days that when I'm in the company of other practitioners, it's more helpful to define myself as Wiccan.
What is the biggest misconception about Wiccans?
I guess it's still the old one that we're involved with Satan or something. But I'm sorry to say to those who believe that they're completely wrong.
There's some watching right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, darling, but you're completely wrong. Satan is an Abrahamic figure. He exists within the pages of the Bible. He is their projection of evil, and they need to deal with him instead of projecting him onto other people, especially us.
That's actually a really good way of putting it. There are many people out there who do consider that the cloven-hooved and horned version of the devil may well have been based off the visuals of pre-existing deity figures, primarily those that are seen in the earlier pagan traditions. These included figures such as Herne, Pan, and Kerunos, gods that often represented the wilderness, the wild, hunting, and fertility. And you'll often see that several things that represent these original gods do appear within the representations of the devil. However, it's important to remember that often these deity figures, these gods, existed before Christianity came to the area, and so they predate the Christian devil. It's most likely that these aspects were taken from the local peoples as a way of turning them away from their pre-existing religion and converting them to Christianity, because it's much easier to convert someone if you make it easy for them, if you have representations for their holidays in this new religion, if their sacred sites become your sacred sites. If you were to demonize pre-existing deities that they would already recognize, they're more likely to understand what you're trying to say. And so there are many out there who do believe that this form of the devil is based off pre-existing gods, which is where a lot of the confusion comes from. These gods aren't the devil. If anything, the devil was based off these gods and has since been twisted and warped into this very negative figure, which none of the pre-existing deities that he was based off were.
You are one of America's first public witches.
I am. Now the whole world is composed of witches. I was one of the first. There were very few of us that had the guts to come out, and I was a lawyer at the time on top of it all, in the very early 80s.
What do Wiccans believe?
We don't necessarily have a unified moral code, for example, or a unified belief about what happens when we die or what gods are like. What we share tends to be ritual stuff, what our tools are, how we frame our liturgy. What you do is more important to us, and what you do reflects your beliefs.
When people hear Wicca, they think witchcraft, they think satanic rituals.
There are no devils and demons and there's definitely no Satan. He is entirely a Christian character. He's their figure who personifies evil.
The only thing that I do just want to add in here is that I don't think applies to every Wiccan. There are many Wiccans who do recognize that demons as spirits do exist, even if they don't choose to work with them themselves. So there are obviously different forms of Wicca, and different Wiccans are going to have a different belief system. Some Wiccans believe in Summerland as an afterlife, others will believe in reincarnation, some will believe in a different plane of existence. Some people will have set spiritual and religious beliefs and texts that are set by their initiatory group. So for instance, if you are initiated into a set coven with a set series of beliefs, you are therefore going to be practicing under that same set of beliefs. Every member of that group is going to be following the same things. But that doesn't mean that every group is going to be following the same things. And this is where it can get complicated because Wicca is now so diverse. There are so many different sub-variants of it that it's really hard to pin down exactly what Wiccans believe. There are definitely teachings that are very spread, such as the rule of 3, do what you will but harm none, and yet not all Wiccans follow that as part of their spiritual or religious practices. It's also important to note that not all Wiccans choose to perform active spell work. Although magical teachings and practice are encompassed into the religion of Wicca, not everyone actively chooses to practice spell work and ritual outside of the ceremonies that are part of the Wiccan tradition. So it's really varied, and that's one of the problems when it comes to pinning down Wicca, is that you really can't, not anymore. It's taken on a life of its own. Some people don't believe that demons exist, some people do. Some people believe in Summerland, others don't, and it's kind of gotten a little bit confusing. So I can understand why a lot of people aren't entirely sure what it is.
Can you tell us about the history of Wicca, where it came from, how long it's been around?
The 1940s in England, there is this popular movement to start looking toward magic and the magical traditions of that area. And there's this guy named Gerald Gardner who comes out and he starts writing popular books. He has a tabloid presence, and basically he comes out and tells people, hey, I was initiated into this surviving witch cult. I've gotten permission to write about it and share it with the world. People start seeking him and various associates of his out for initiation. And eventually he initiates folks in the US, his books make it over there, and people begin spreading his tradition in the United States.
Just to butt in here, I know it's kind of annoying, but one of his most famous initiates that went on to spread Wicca around North America was actually Raymond Buckland, whose books are world famous. And in all of this, you have the ultimate question of, did Gerald Gardner simply spread very ancient information that he found within this witch cult? Or was it information that he found out during his time as part of this witch cult that was then added into other pre-existing traditions and then moved forwards? And no one is really sure what was happening there. Was he really part of this witch cult and coven? Was he not? I mean, I think most people believe that he was. It's just whether or not all of the information came from this one source, or whether a lot of information he added in himself, because he was a very well-travelled man. It was quite likely that some of it could have been brought in from other places, and honestly, we're never really going to know, because most of, if not all, the people who were a part of the initial recognition of Wicca are no longer around to tell us where it all started and where it came from.
Is Wicca a modern religion, or is it ancestral?
It wasn't called Wicca, but it existed more than 5,000 years ago. It developed as a modern rebirth.
That's actually a really beautiful way of putting it. Nothing can stay the same forever. Things have to change and develop in order to survive. Some of the aspects of Wicca are very old, and we know that they're very old. But the way that they are done today is adapted to the modern age. It's a modern form of this much older practice that is now called Wicca. It wasn't initially called Wicca. I think that's really important to remember. It isn't that this is an unchanged belief system. It's 100% been changed and adapted, as almost all belief systems and religions have been. Nothing stays the exact same forever, or it simply wouldn't survive. So it's a modern revival of spiritual beliefs and practices that are much older, that have just been repackaged for the modern day.
Would you say that the ritual that was done to initiate you changed you, or the way you perceived the world, or made you feel differently? Was there some kind of value placed on that initiation?
I know some folks who will say that their initiations felt like a culmination of something. For other people, it's the moment itself is that transitory kind of explosive moment where suddenly you're different.
This is something I've heard people say not only in Wicca, but in witchcraft as a whole as well. There tends to be two different ways that people will perceive witchcraft. Either it's something that they've been doing for their entire life, something that they've experienced or believed in or felt for their entire life. And the understanding of what that is, whether that is in a witchcraft book or whether that is initiation into a Wiccan coven, that is that spark of understanding of, wow, this feels like what my entire life has drawn me to. That's kind of one category of people. You then have the other category of people who really haven't felt anything up until that point. They maybe bounced around different religious beliefs, maybe they couldn't settle on anything or nothing felt quite right. They didn't actively practice anything beforehand, but they always felt like something was missing. And then when they found Wicca, or they were initiated into a coven, or they found witchcraft, that's when the light came on, the floodgates opened, and all of a sudden they're walking into this brand new world that makes sense to them. And I often find that people are one of the two. So I'd love to know, if you're watching this, which one you fall into. Are you the kind of person where when you found Wicca or witchcraft, it made you realize what you'd been doing beforehand? Or are you the kind of person where when you found Wicca or witchcraft, you realised what you could do? I'd love to know which. I fall into the first category. I was practising and undertaking magical tradition before I realised what it was. I always had different belief systems, thoughts, theories, practices than everyone around me, and then when I found witchcraft, it clicked as to what it was. But there are plenty out there who are in the other category. And I'd love to kind of figure out a consensus of how many people within the magical community fall into which category. I would love to know.
If I were a skeptic, I might hear things like, there was a guy at this point sometime within recent history that found this thing and then started spreading his word, and then people started becoming initiated into it. I would think cult.
Yeah. And that word was used. I think cult is one of those words where we use it usually to mean this religion over here that we don't like. People used to write about the cult of democracy in the United States, this idea of devotion to something, adherence to something. So it's really only in very recent decades that the word cult has come to have this blanket kind of negative connotation. But amongst my coven mates, yeah, we use the word cult.
Most people, when they hear cult, assume that it means unquestioning devotion to a belief system that was taught to you.
And that definitely is not who we are. If we could be said to have a central virtue, it would be autonomy and personal authority. My devotion is to my tradition and to my gods. It's not to other witches, and it's certainly not to a founder.
That is a really big thing in that the word cult has really only started to mean something really bad since the late 70s, 80s. Before that point, it was used to describe so many different things. For anyone who doesn't know anything about Wicca, I suppose it's quite easy to see it as this very negative, you are following a leader kind of a religion. But the reality is it's not really like that. If you are a solitary Wiccan, as the majority, I'd say, of Wiccans today are, there's no one there for you to follow to tell you what to do. You're doing this of your own volition, of your own accord, and you can leave that religion whenever you feel you need to. You might follow gods and goddesses, but they're not necessarily a higher power that you are worshipping. Instead, they are figures that you are working with spiritually, and for some people magically as well. If you are initiated into a coven, there are going to be people there who have been there for longer, and who maybe have a higher status in that coven because they are the ones teaching the new initiates, or they are the ones that founded that coven. But ultimately, you are not blindly following a single person standing on a podium. And if you don't feel comfortable as part of that, you aren't locked into it forever. It isn't something that you are trapped within. Your free will and your ability to change your mind and change your thinking is something that many Wiccans are very open to. It isn't that you are blindly following the person that is higher than you. It's just that some people in that coven environment are going to have more knowledge than you do. And so they're going to help you along your journey to develop your skills and to develop your stoic practices. And oftentimes, in the covens that I've experienced and the people within covens that I know personally, the high priest and the high priestess will actually change over time. Now, obviously, I can't speak for every Wiccan coven that is out there. It's going to be very variable. But these two figures are not dead set. It isn't something that can't change and fluctuate. And in some groups, different rituals will have different members of the group being high priest and high priestess. Oftentimes, the high priest and priestess will be chosen based on the personal strengths of the individuals. Some rituals are better suited to some members of the community than others. And so oftentimes, the high priest and high priestess will change. And at the end of the day, everyone is working together to gain something out of it. And if you aren't gaining something out of it, you have the ability to simply leave. It isn't something that you are trapped into or forced to be a part of. And if you are, then that's more likely a sign of a bad group and a bad bunch of people than the religion as a whole. After all, every religion has the bad apples. That doesn't make the entire batch ruined. It just means that a few people are not going to be all that nice.
You cast spells. Do you use magic?
Oh yeah, from the very beginning. If you ask most sort of young witches, they'll tell you that magic is the art of manipulating supernatural forces to manifest what you want. Not so much. I mean, that's kind of an old model.
What is the magic, actually?
The magic is the flow of the sacred from energy into embodiment. Everything's interconnected. And that flow of connection, that relationship, that energy that moves back and forth between us and the plant, which could use a little more water and a little more sun.
We're trying not to talk about that.
When you open your mind and open your heart, the sacred comes to you. You ask, and the energy flows into you. And it changes you, and you work with it. And working with it is casting a spell.
I thought it was you had to find 5 very rare herbs, mix
Yes.
them together in a concoction of your own blood and the blood of some random person, and then you have to mix it up and mash it together,
Genau.
and then you have to drink it 6 times,
Yeah? Where did you hear this? Stop going on witch talk.
and then all your dreams will manifest.
A good spell.
Okay, firstly, let's not shit entirely on Witch Talk. There are plenty of authentic creators on Witch Talk. It's just the problem with social media as a whole is that the non-physical is kind of hard to show on video. I do think, however, that there is definitely variables within the magical community as to what magic is. And that's going to vary depending on your tradition and your spirituality and your culture, because it's important to remember that Wicca and witchcraft are not the sole form of magical tradition. There are hundreds of magical traditions around the world. Each of them has their own unique flair, their own unique practices, and often their own unique cultural connections. And so different magical traditions are going to have a different understanding of what the foundation of that means. And so for some people, it might include the sacred, it might include deities, it might include higher powers. For other people, it might include spirits or earthly energies or elementals. But I think what most people can recognize is that the practicing of magic is the manifestation of physical, spiritual, emotional, or energetic change as a response to our actions. That doesn't have to be a complex ceremonial ritual. That could be the energy that we put out into the world. That could be the simple things and the simple charms that we speak before we go to sleep. That could be an offering that we give to a spirit or an ancestor. The practice of the craft is going to vary depending on where you are, who you are, what your tradition, your religion, your cultural heritage. It's going to vary dramatically. But the kind of baseline of it is fairly similar. It's just the unique ways of doing it that are going to change. So in this example, they would work with the sacred, and it's that energy flow that is significant to them. To other people, it might be the earth that is significant. It might be the deities that are specific. It's going to vary a lot. But the big thing to emphasize is that you don't need to be doing a complex spell and ritual with 13 really rare herbs and grinding it all together in a set way. That is one technique of manifesting change. It certainly isn't the only kind, and so don't feel that you need to have any physical objects in order to undertake successful magical practice. You don't need anything. You just need yourself, your own energy, and your own thinking. The ability to express your energy and direct it towards your target or goal is really all you need. Anything extra is exactly that. It's just an extra.
Magic potentially involves a lot of things. People who will tell you that if you make a wish on your birthday candles and you blow those out, like that's a type of spell. Lots of people have different perspectives. All of that potentially is magic. To me, magic can be a useful tool for kind of controlling those things that we might think of as coincidence or luck. It's not going to fix everything. It puts enough things into play where the thing that I am hoping will happen has a better chance of happening. There are people who are very bookish, and there are ancient traditions of magic that we could study and we could potentially master. There are recipe books out there.
And do they work?
They can, yeah. I know, that sounds very coy.
Very up for interpretation.
Some people are in this camp that says, here's a spell, and the elements of it by themselves are powerful. There are other people who it's a creative act. It's something that it's born in the same way that you might write a song or make a piece of visual art.
So it's a piece of art.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel a certain way, and it might change your actions.
Totally.
So there isn't a general sense of here's a recipe or an equation for you to follow, and what works for me will work for you. It really is individual by individual.
I can give you a recipe, but if you've got no heart in that recipe, I don't think it's going to work as well for you.
That is so beautifully worded, and it's so true. There's a reason why, though there are spell books and recipe books out there, I will typically always tell people that the best way to do it is to create something for yourself. And that's because you can follow a recipe, but if that energy isn't there, if that emotion isn't there, that heart, as Thorn said in this video, isn't there, then that working is not going to be successful for you. Because witchcraft and other magical traditions aren't necessarily just follow this word for word, add all of these items in at this exact moon phase, and it will miraculously manifest. There needs to be something more there. There needs to be that drive, that desire, that passion, that push to get that going energetically. And so many magical practitioners will adapt spells and rituals from books and other forms of media. They will adapt recipes to suit what it is that they're working with, or they will create their own spells and recipes as they need them. And that's largely because it's going to depend very much on what it is that you practice, what it is that you believe in, how you connect, and how you perceive the world. A lot of people wouldn't bother putting trees into their spells and rituals because they're just trees. Whereas for me in my practice, I really enjoy working with trees and tree spirits and tree energies, and that's really powerful for me. That doesn't mean it's going to be powerful for the next person if they work better with elementals than they do trees. And so you'll often find that within magical traditions as a whole, not just Wicca, if you were to speak to 15 different practitioners, they will do a spell or ritual for the same goal and do it 15 different ways, because how we practice is very personal. There's a reason it's referred to as witchcraft or magical arts. It is something that is very unique and personal. It's something that's very creative, and that creation is all part of that larger process. And that's why you don't need 1,000 different herbs or oils or tools. You can do your magic with none of that. All of that is simply extra things that you can add into your piece of art. So you can create art in your mind. You can, if you're able to, write a book or make a painting or make some music. You are making art with your mind. Anything else you add into that is extra. So if you want to use oil paint, then that's an extra. If you want to use a canvas, that's extra. If you want to use a computer or a piece of paper or a typewriter, that's an extra. It's a way of expressing that creativity in the physical world, but it isn't the creation of creativity. You are using those tools to manifest your creativity. That's the same when it comes to witchcraft and also Wiccan spells as well. You are using the tools as a visual aid for manifesting your creativity. That creativity exists without those tools, and you can express it without any tools as well, much like how a singer can create a piece of music with just their voice. They don't need 1,000 instruments to be able to do it. The same applies with witchcraft and Wicca as well.
I think we're gonna have you do your very own spell.
What would those spells look like? Are you allowed to say, or is that secret?
I'll share it with you.
Okay. There's no cameras rolling, so don't worry.
No, that's good. It's all
just you and me.
I believe you.
I totally turned off the cameras.
And I am very gullible.
Okay.
So let's go.
Good, let's go.
I'm going to ask you to think about prosperity and success. Mm-hmm. Whatever that looks like for you.
I already got prosperity and success. You see, look around me.
I mean, I see some things that could be
I'm in this
upon.
$7 billion studio with 45 associates who help me at every single moment.
I mean, you've got me here with you, so that's pretty...
And you are a hefty penny.
I am. So fundamentally what you're going to do, you're going to make yourself a little bag. We're going to put some stuff in it.
Okay.
We're going to decide that it's magical.
Okay. So it's a decision. It's an internal belief.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So here's what you're going to do first. I brought a bunch of little pouches. They're in different colors. And I want you to think, like, if you were going to bring success or prosperity into your life, like, give me a color association.
I am going to go with the green bag. It's got multiple different textures, and the fact that it looks handmade, to me, feels like more connection to the earth.
Okay, so now I want to think about these herbs. What might you pick, like, as kind of our base?
I think the base would be spearmint. I feel like this is most associated with taking care of yourself, associated with brushing your teeth and having a minty mouth.
Yeah, your day's going to go better if you brush your teeth. Okay. So now I want to look at some of these other objects we have here. Some of this was in, like, I've got a little cup on my desk with, like, interesting stones.
I see 3 objects
here
that I immediately would be gravitated toward.
What are they?
First off would be this shiny little...
That's pyrite.
It's beautiful. I think the color goes really well with the bag that we have
It's
here.
also called fool's gold. And again, we have that association with wealth, with prosperity.
And then the amethyst, I have a connection with this from when I was younger because I used to like to collect rocks. I was a really cool kid that liked to collect rocks. And then this one here, I think the light traveling through it is really beautiful.
I love that you're putting yourself in there too. The last thing you're going to do is write what is often called a petition. I'm not going to read it, and you don't have to share it with anybody else.
Okay.
And you don't even have to write words. You can draw a symbol that's important to you. If you've got song lyrics that are meaningful to you, something that just speaks to the prosperity that you want to bring into your life.
I drew a waterfall. I feel like it's a reminder to go with the flow, and how even when it feels like you are falling, you'll still end up back in the water on your journey, flowing forward.
I like it. Great. And that's what you're doing now.
And should I be popping it in here?
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's yours. And you're going to keep that forever and ever, or until you feel like it's done its job with you, and place it wherever.
And that could have a huge, profound effect on the way that I go about my life. But is it all here?
Even if you've finished your spell, whatever it is, and you feel like it hasn't worked, I think that there's still value just in the fact that you performed it at all. If we think that magic is art, then it's equally valuable to sit down and create and not worry about the outcome. Let's say it is all in my head. Let's say that it's a placebo and I'm casting some kind of spell because like I'm very anxious about a school test, or I'm very anxious about whatever. Like, just the process of sitting down and going through something like this, I find calms my anxiety. And at that point, who cares?
Who cares if it's a placebo, because placebos work. The belief in something working is enough to make it work sometimes.
And that's something else that I think makes Wicca weird, and why I kind of hesitate around the idea of belief, because to me, belief may not be the most important thing. Sometimes just the doing it is important.
Firstly, everything that Anthony chose there, very good. I know that everything on this table has been set up specifically for this working, but the fact that everything was chosen in such a concise way with its own meanings and associations, that's really what people should be doing when it comes to witchcraft. I understand the appeal of searching up a different list of correspondence for everything that you want to manifest and picking things off it and then researching all of the information as to why you've chosen it. That's definitely a really useful thing to do. And it's really useful to develop your understanding of why things are associated with the things that they're associated with. But ultimately, it comes down to how you feel about something. If you are really drawn to an imagery or a color or a herb or a crystal, whatever it might be, the fact that you are drawn to it to such a great extent for that particular working is meaningful to you. Now, it's one thing if you're doing workings for other people, and maybe it's more important to have a general association. But when you're working for yourself, it's how you feel about something that's going to be really important. So honestly, I think Anthony could be really good as a witch. That would be really cool. The other thing in this is that everything there is so true. There are many different reasons why people will undertake spells and rituals, and how they perceive that spell and ritual is very variable. So for many people, they will believe that it's simply psychological. You are putting something in your mind, in your subconscious mind, by actively doing it and thinking about it, and therefore you're more likely to do that in your life. That's a valid approach to spell work and ritual, but it's not something that everyone is going to follow. Other people believe that it's simply a placebo effect, whereas people like myself consider it to be more magical. These three different thought processes are not the only ways that people will work with witchcraft spells and rituals and Wicca, but they are all valid in their own way. Many people will consider witchcraft, spell, ritual, and Wicca to be essentially just a bunch of hocus pocus. They can't wrap their heads around why it might work, but ultimately that doesn't matter. As long as to the people who are undertaking it, it benefits them in some way, whether it's because the spirits and entities that you're reaching out to will reach back again, whether it's because it gives a psychological effect, whether it's because it gives a placebo effect, or as is mentioned here, it just makes someone feel calmer and better. It really doesn't matter as long as it's making that person feel good. It's not causing them any harm. It's something that they enjoy doing, and it's making them feel better and more comfortable in their lives. So I can understand why from an outsider's perspective it might be a little bit confusing. There isn't one set technique as to why all of these things manifest or work or help someone. But ultimately, you don't need to understand why someone else does something. You just have to accept the fact that they do and understand that although you might have different belief systems, they are just as valid in their belief system as you are in yours.
Thank you for this, and I will leave it up to my interpretation to see what comes from this.
Magic.
Thank you.
Anthony's a
That was
witch
great.
now.
I am a witch. Do you find that people tend to be skeptical when they hear about you being a witch? When they hear about what types of benefits and things this brings you?
So the first reaction, even now, amongst too many people, that either you're wacky or you're satanic, it's just tedious. I mean, I've tried to engage with fundamentalists of various stripes, And generally speaking, it doesn't matter what your faith is. If it's not theirs, they're not listening.
I mean, I've been Wiccan for my entire adult life. I was exploring it as a teenager, and I wasn't raised in a religious household. And when I started, particularly going to college, particularly like in the Southeast, most of the people who I know were raised in some kind of Christian household. And that stuff isn't less weird than what I do. Believing in bodily resurrection is not more reasonable than what you and I just did.
Right.
Like, personally, I just wish that we all could appreciate that if it's weird, at least we're all weird.
I never really thought about how the terms magic and spellcasting can mean something entirely different based on your previous exposure to the words. What if magic really is all just a matter of setting your intentions and opening yourself up for interpretations that align with that intention? If I cast a spell to have a good day, am I more likely to have a good day because of that, because of my intention to do so? Whether it's a placebo or something more, doesn't matter if it actually works.
And this is why I love Anthony and all of his interviews. He is just so open-minded to everything that people are talking about. Ultimately, what lots of other religions do would probably be considered a spell or a ritual or even magic if it was done by the magical community. But somehow, when it's done by a large religious group, it's seen as part of their religion. It's something that you shouldn't question, you should just do. But when it's a part of witchcraft or Wicca, all of a sudden it's something strange and unusual. I think many of us will have either known of, seen, or even experienced ourselves things within mainstream religions that would be, by any other definition, a spell, and yet they're considered simply normal and part of that religious teaching. And so I think it's really interesting to see how different religions and spiritual beliefs are treated by the general population. Generally though, I really enjoyed this video, and I do think it's such a shame that so many people didn't like it in the comment section. It's actually one of the reasons why so many people wanted me to talk about this video. It's not because the video itself is bad, it's actually because the video is amazing, but unfortunately it reached a lot of people who are very opposed to the teachings of Wicca and the belief in Wicca and witchcraft. And so it was really targeted by a lot of not very nice people. So if you have the time and the chance, I would thoroughly recommend going over to that original video. The link is in the description box, and giving Anthony and all of the people that were a part of it a lot of love. Like that video, share that video among witchcraft and Wiccan communities, because they really do deserve all the love, because it is a really enjoyable video. If you did like my reaction to this video, feel free to give it a like, it means so much to me. If you have any other videos you would like to see me react to, feel free to put them down in the comment section. I always enjoy doing reaction videos and seeing how other people perceive witchcraft and the magical traditions. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community, you can also post a comment down in the comment section, or you can chat about this video and any other over on the Discord server. The link is in the description box. Thank you to all of my Patreon supporters who help keep this channel going. Your names are all on the end screen, and if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. So with that being said, I hope you all have a marvelous magical day. I hope you're all staying safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're going to be doing another reaction video. What is it to? I spent a day with Wiccans who use my body as a vessel to cast spells. Okay. Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're going to be doing another reaction video. This time it is to Anthony Padilla's video, I spent a day with Wiccans who use my body as a vessel to cast spells. Was that right? Wait! Did I get the intro right in one take? Who am I? What is happening? Have I been possessed? Have I been taken over by some all-knowing spirit? No, I just had sheer dumb luck. That's what happened. If anyone has been here before on my reaction videos, you know I can never, ever get the title right. I got it right first try. Okay. Anyway. Oh, I just sank. I realise now there's a reason I sit here. It's because it's like the hard edge of the sofa, like the really rock hard bit. If I sit here on the squishy bit, I shrink. I need to find something to sit on. That's what I need. Let's see if this will do it. I have a cute cushion. Cute cushion, right. Oh, that's uncomfortable. But you know what? For the duration of this, I'll put up with it. Turn my sound on and actually sit in with good posture, because in a lot of my reaction videos, I'm like a little goblin and I have to like, good posture. Let's try. I'm not very good at good posture, but I will give it a go. Okay, advert. Scared me. I had to change camera angles, so, well no, I had to change my camera battery, so the angle might be slightly off. I'm hoping it's okay, but it might not be. Oh dear, I skipped. Where was I? I think I was about here. Let's try here. I feel like I'm definitely in the wrong place now. Okay, I'm just gonna have to go for it and hope for the best.
The whole world is composed of witches. I was one of the first. There were very few of us that had...
Oh, I think I was on the wrong moon. Wait, was I here? I'm too in the middle. I couldn't have been there. I guess it must have been that moon? Huh. I'm actually not sure. It's just so... Oh, my voice is so dry. I'm going to have to wait for my eyes to stop watering now, because they do be watering while I'm waiting for my eyes to stop watering from my sore throat. Look at this cute little pumpkin mug. It's got a lid. It's so, I mean, it does line up, I promise. Here. Here. It lines up. It's so cute. I got it from Asda. No, I didn't. I got it from Sainsbury's. It's super cute. It looks like I'm stoned. I'm not. I just had a dry throat. And now my nose is running. I'm so close to being done on this video. Oh, I've been sitting here recording this video for an hour and a half. For reference, it's an 18-minute long video. It's 18 minutes. And I have been talking for an hour and a half. And then I filmed a video before this that was an hour. My back hurts. My butt hurts. I can't film anything else today. I mean, I should do another reaction video, but oh, my back. Ow. Owie.